welcome back once again to After the Credits. Today we're talking about The Shape of Water. What did I think of The Shape of Water? It started out interesting and quickly took a nosedive into basic young adult love story BS that kind of faded out after the whole Twilight saga ended. The movie's basically a period piece. It starts out back in, I want to say, the 50s or 60s, somewhere around there, maybe early 70s. It's more involved in the Cold War, so probably closer to that time, but it looked a lot older than being the era that I grew up in, which would have been the 70s, 80s era. So I'm going to say it's probably at least the 60s, if not slightly earlier. But it does revolve around the Cold War, the back and forth with Russia. And the thing I like about this being a period piece is it doesn't revolve directly around a war like some of the other period pieces do. Like, normally I like a period piece, but a lot of people don't know how to do period pieces unless it's like World War I or World War II, which gets boring and repetitive, and I'm not big on war films in general. So when that's the only period pieces you find, it gets a bit annoying. But when it's something like this, or again like Suburbicon, where it's kind of that earlier period piece where it's just things take place at an earlier time that things were different and you can kind of see how things were different, I don't mind those so much, and I can kind of watch those. And that's kind of where this one falls, is it's an earlier time, it's not directly about a war, it's actually revolving around the space race of getting to the moon and whatnot, and they talk about how Russia has sent a dog into orbit, and America wants to get a human into orbit, but they have to figure out how to make it to where a human can survive in space, which, if Russia's already to the point where you're sending a dog into space, they already have that technology to kind of develop for humans. So why America is so far behind at this point doesn't really make a lot of sense. They should be fairly caught up to almost sending the chimp into space. But basically, at some point, somewhere, some scientists, military personnel, whatever, find a merman. And they basically want to study the merman because he can breathe both in water and on land. So they're like, oh, there's got to be some type of a dual breathing structure inside his body. If we can figure that out, maybe we can figure out something for humans to survive in space. So they have him at this research facility, and everyone thinks he's just this mindless creature. And then this mute girl, she can hear, but she can't speak, or she can speak, but not very well. There's damage to her throat. She has like scarring on her throat, so people think, something happened to her when she was young. But no one knows because she was left at an orphanage as a baby, and she's just kind of always been that way. So she can't really speak, but as she's cleaning the facility, they let her into restricted areas to do cleaning, which is just odd because if it's this high security area, why would you let a janitor in there? So she goes in and she sees the creature and she's kind of mesmerized by it, and she tries to make friends with it by like offering it like food and stuff, and it starts to warm up to her, and at first it's still a little wild and standoffish and like grabs the food and runs away, but then as time goes on it kind of calms down whenever she's around, and they start to get more friendly, and she starts to teach it bits of sign language to where it can communicate with her. Like, she puts the egg down and she makes the symbol for egg, then she kind of sits down another day and doesn't put an egg out, and it swims up and does the symbol, and then she goes, oh, and puts an egg out, and then he takes it. So now he knows this means egg, so they start to learn how to communicate that way through sign language. But she doesn't let anyone know that she's communicating with the creature because the military are all dicks at this point, obviously, because it's the whole still macho man era where no woman can tell you anything. But one of the scientists kind of oversees that she's communicating with this creature and starts to report back that it's an intelligent creature and it could probably be studied and you could learn from it, but the military just wants to dissect it to figure out how its body works so that they can use it for the space race. So then it turns into this whole we have to rescue the creature kind of free willy thing. So then they get the creature out, no one knows where it went because the security system was shit, and she's keeping the creature at her house for a while in her bathtub, and she basically kind of falls in love with the thing, starts having this relationship with it, which was just kind of overly stupidly put into the movie. It's like, she wants to fuck this thing, and eventually she does, and then the next day at work she's all like smiling and happy, and her best friend's like, why are you so chipper? What's gotten into you? And then she kind of like winks about it, and she goes, oh my god, you did? And she's like, why? How? And then she's like, does he even have the equipment? And she kind of explains through hand gestures how his penis works, basically. So the next part of the movie is just kind of nonsensical crap like that doesn't really need to be there, trying to cash in on the Twilight type of audience market, and it's just there for fan service for anyone that's into that. Then we get back into the actual movie where the military finds out where the creature was taken, where it's being kept or whatever, and now they have to get the creature out of there, get it back into the ocean, let it free before the military can capture it and dissect it. And that's basically the end of the movie. Is does he get free, does he not? I'm not going to tell you, but overall just not really that great of a movie. If you like things like Twilight and all that, you might enjoy it, but even Twilight had a better story than this does, in my opinion, and that's not saying a whole lot because Twilight was written by Stephenie Meyer, who's a shit writer to begin with. But yeah, basically replace vampires with the creature from the Black Lagoon and turn it into Free Willy, and you have your movie. So what would I give it as far as a star rating? Probably a 2, and I'm only saying a 2. I was going to say a 2.5 because it's kind of a mediocre film, but I gave Justice League a 2.5, and I like this less than Justice League, so it gets bumped down to a 2 just from that. It's worse than Justice League. So that's it for this episode. Again, as always, thank you guys for watching. Remember to like, comment, subscribe, share the video. Links are down in the description. Click the bell next to the subscribe button so you get notifications every time I post new content. And until next time, I'll see you after the credits.